Good evening. Welcome to another edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show. My name is Leon Jones, and tonight we get into a little bit of political news and some social topics. Now, first, I want to get into the SNAP benefits. Now, I know that there have been a number of individuals out here, particularly women, who have been dependent on SNAP. And they've even had videos out there where individuals on SNAP are saying, we don't have enough food stamps, we have to use cash. Well, it's funny. When I go to the grocery store, I have to use cash or a debit card. And we who are working and pay all the taxes, we get no reverence. And in the end, people like me have to get up and fight every day. Now, I took care of kids, 4 of them. Had to pay child support for 4 of them. Had to pay health insurance. I couldn't get food stamps. But you have a number of whiny women and some men, not many, but some men who believe that they are entitled to live off the government. Now, there are some people who need the government, but with SNAP benefits, the ones I believe who are crying about not getting any benefits are the ones who have been getting away with the system for a very long time. These are the ones who keep having kid after kid after kid after kid with the wrong guy. And they breed that same poverty mindset into their kids. So basically, you have numerous cycles of families who live off the government dole for the rest of their lives. Now, there was a program where you had to work for at least 15 hours. Now, again, I've seen some videos that individuals complain, well, if we have to work, how are we going to be able to take care of our children? Well, I'm going to ask you this. When you didn't work, who took care of your child when you went to the club? Because there are a number of you who do that. And the ones who are going to the club, getting their hair done, having fun, and they have kids, who do they drop that child off with? Their mamas. And are they giving their mamas anything? No. And when it comes to food stamps, the illegals, they were getting a lot of food stamps as well. They were living better than the Americans. Now, here's what I want to say to the Democrats out there. You all brainwashed a lot of these individuals who are on food stamps. What you want are individuals to be on a system for the rest of their lives. You don't want progress. A number of you get on the liberal media and you lie. In fact, the worst thing you could ever tell me as a veteran is Donald Trump, the president. He's trying to starve Americans. Well, when it comes to the Fourth Amendment in the Constitution, there's nothing about welfare or benevolency in the Fourth Amendment. In other words, we don't have to take care of the poor. That's what donations and different organizations do, the United Way. There's nothing in that Constitution that says you can take my money and give it to other countries. That's what a lot of government organizations or a lot of administrations have been doing. You have these other countries living off of America. And you all are complaining about Trump's tariffs. Reagan had tariffs. Joe Biden had tariffs. In fact, President Gerald Ford signed tariffs in the law in the 70s, which now the tariffs are up in the Supreme Court. And from my humble opinion, I do not believe that the Supreme Court is going to overturn tariffs. Tariffs have been used against Americans by other countries. We're just returning a favor. And there are a number of individuals who don't understand what's going on with the economy. Now, I can tell you, there are people spending money. Now, I hear, well, food prices are high. Well, if they're that high, how come I see a number of people? And it's only Tuesday night here in Indianapolis. And I can tell you right now, I've seen Popeyes. I mean, that drive-through is long. I've seen Kentucky Fried Chicken. Now, these are just fast food restaurants, McDonald's. But when I drive down 82nd Street, Denny's has a few people, not many, but you look at Olive Garden, you look at Wingstop, Yummy Bowl, Five Guys, people are running in and out. You look at Red Lobster, you look at Longhorn Steakhouse, Texas Steakhouse, and there are people shopping at Meijer, Kroger, Aldi, Wally World. So to say that the economy is bad, how come people are spending money? Now, energy prices are starting to come down. Now, I'm just giving you a rough estimate in my area, not even a rough estimate, something rough in this area. Within the confines of Indianapolis, the gas is right around $2.99 to $3.15. Well, when I drive up I-65 in Lebanon, they're looking at $2.61. So here's what happens. So you understand the economy. When energy prices come down, everything else comes down. Now, what I'm tired of is everybody blaming the bullshit out here on Trump. Trump is the president. He's the figurehead. It's Congress, particularly the Democrats. See, the Democrats wanted Congress to shut the government down so they can extend the Affordable Care Act benefits. He keeps saying health care. Well, the government shouldn't be in charge of health care. What you should do is go after all these insurance providers for health care. Now, let me give you an example. I pay a certain amount of money for health care, and I don't even use it half the time. When I go to the dentist, the Delta Dental, I pay a certain amount of money for it, but heck, when I need something done, I just pay for it out of my pocket. Or I have a health savings account. Now, health savings accounts are out there because a lot of your health insurances have high deductibles. That means if I break a leg or something, the insurance is going to cover up to a certain amount. Let's say I have a $5,000 deductible. Well, the insurance is going to cover, depending on how much it's going to cost to operate on this leg, I'm still going to have to pay $5,000. Now, you have a number of people in this country who think healthcare is a right. No, healthcare is a privilege. And the way you keep healthcare down, now there are some people, and I'm not talking about the individuals who need the benefits. I'm talking about the able-bodied who believe that the rest of us owe them something because they were irresponsibly having sex, making kids with different mothers, with different men and women out here while I'm out here working. And you get some of these individuals who have the kids and they get better income tax returns than I do. In fact, when you are an employee, you don't really get a large income tax return, especially if you don't have kids. And the only way, as a single person, that you're going to actually get a big income tax return is if you have itemized deductions. Now, your itemized deductions have to be greater than the standard deductions in order for you to take the itemized deductions. This is why it's advantageous to have a business. But in the end, the Democrats don't want individuals to have businesses. In fact, they have created in everybody's mind doom and gloom. They want socialism in this country. And you have a number of people who don't even know what socialism is. They don't even know what insurrections are. There was the Insurrection Act of, I believe it was 1807. You have a number of people who don't know history. And that's just not black folk. I saw a video that Anton Daniels posted with a white woman up there. She thinks old conservatives don't know what's going on. Well, yeah, we do know what's going on. You don't know what's going on because you're going to these colleges, you're indoctrinated by a lot of these professors, and you're bringing that rhetoric home, and you think you're educating someone when basically you're living off your parents. That's what a number of you do, particularly a number of you liberal white women. And what I see is just like Occupy Wall Street. In fact, you know who was, and this was back in 2011, the same old rhetoric, billionaires, billionaires. Well, you Democrats, let me tell you something. I'm going to call out some billionaires you have on your side. Are you saying anything to people like Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Jay-Z, Beyonce, Rihanna, and some of your upper millionaires like LeBron James? You have a number of Democrats who have a lot of money. And these donors, and let me tell you something, a lot of individuals put money into Mamdani's campaign so he'd win. But see, what a number of you women have done, you voted for Mamdani, particularly young women. Now, let me tell you something about these foreigners who come over here. Mamdani, he's actually African. He was born in Uganda. He's from a privileged family. Now, he's promising you free shit. And Mamdani thinks he's going to put it to Donald Trump. Mr. Mamdani, I respect that you won mayor of New York. The city's already fucked up. You're just going to fuck it up even more. But you're a mayor. Now, of course, you're going to have people in the city council that might vote for your stuff. But in the real world, you can try to take from some of your constituents who live in New York. Now, I'm just warning you, constituents who live in New York, don't come out here to Indiana. I'll tell you where you can go if you want some liberalism, though. Move down to Maryland, my old home state. Move down there. You don't have anybody like Mamdani running. Move down or move to Northern Virginia. You want to get out of New York? Stay in your liberal lanes. Go to Vermont or Maine. But don't come out here. I mean, I already see enough California plates out here, but it's not enough for them to make any changes here in the state of Indiana because this is a red state. But the bottom line is a number of Americans out here do not know how the government works. They don't know how the economy works. And they're getting out here on social media utilizing opinions just to make themselves feel good or feel like they are scholars. You're not scholars. You're brainwashed. You're looking at CNN, The View. Some of you are looking at all these movies out here, and you believe what you see, particularly women. Women are very gullible and stupid. Not all of them, but you have a percentage of them who are. You think you can make it all alone? Think you can do everything alone? Don't need a man? I don't need no man. Now, when it starts getting cold, you don't have food stamps. Now you act like you're on the street hungry. When a number of you are getting your hair did, nails, then you get these white chicks, and these are liberals. Because I know there are a number of poor whites live up there in Appalachia, but you know what? I don't hear anything from them. And in fact, when that hurricane went on in North Carolina, there were a number of people in Appalachia who were affected. They didn't depend on government. In fact, the Biden administration wanted to give them $750, but they had to qualify for that $750 and then pay it back. Did you know that? They didn't look out for people of Appalachia. They looked out for themselves. But you have individuals out here who really believe that the rest of us owe you something. But the Democrats, see, the problem with the Democratic Party, and I hate to say this when it comes to black people were better during Jim Crow. Absolutely. They had their own because they had to depend on each other. But you have everybody else out here who they're basically hopping on the coats of the civil rights movement. You're feminist out there. And I'm trying to look out for you feminists. You want this Mom Donnie? Guess what might happen? He might end up bringing Sharia law. And the way you all are dressing now, you could end up in burqas. You see what it is? He's from Uganda. His culture is a lot different than American culture. But a number of you who listen to these communists talk, they're going to tell you everything that you want to hear and deliver nothing. And see, the Democrats thought they could get away with that. The bottom line is with health care, why don't you Democrats go after the insurance companies? They're the ones charging too much. Because when Obamacare kicked in, our premiums went up. I mean, I remember the good old days of the HMOs and PPOs. Now we have to take extra money out of our checks and pay for health care and health savings accounts because the deductibles are too high. But you got some of them who think they can go to a Canada or Sweden. Yes, you can get socialized health care by the government there. They don't have as many people. But if you need a real surgery, like a hip replacement, you may have to wait a long time to get that hip replacement. That's some of your folks up in Canada because they can't get the hip replacements and the knee replacements that they need in Canada. What are they doing? They're coming down here to America. And look at the doctors. You see, when you have government run healthcare, most of your healthcare is going to, the doctors aren't going to want to do it. You're going to be looking at physicians assistants. That's what you're going to be looking at. Doctors want to get paid. Now, if you go over to Russia, it's pure communism. And I want to say this, when we talk about immigration, well, some of you folks who are for these illegals, I'm going to tell you what. Why don't you go over into those countries that you brag that you've never been? Many of you have never been out of the United States, but you're bragging about how good communism is. Well, go over to those countries and live under communism and socialism. Tell me how you like it. In fact, I guarantee I can't take an American to go over into one of those countries and run for office and start talking out America shit over there, like Mamdani, like the rest of these commies can talk over here. See, the problem is the government allows free speech where it can be dangerous. Now, notice what I said free speech, First Amendment rights. It does protect speech that doesn't make sense, but that's only on a government level. In the workplace, you don't have free speech. It's put into the work policies. This is why a number of you who have gotten on social media in the workplace, you've gotten fired because in the policy states you can't put rhetoric on social media. And some of these employers look at your social media. And the bottom line is this with Mamdani, I don't understand him. He won't put any men on his transition team. It's all women. All women. So what is he trying to do? Sway the women? What's he going to do for black people? And see, the people who basically voted from Mamdani are foreigners. This is why cities like Chicago, New York, and LA, they let the illegals run amok. This is why a number of individuals who live in cities should move out of cities. But many of you couldn't live in a country because it's a different environment, much slower. You don't have as many resources, and you have to be even more self-sufficient. You can't go to a beauty parlor in the country too much. You got to learn how to do your hair. You don't have a grocery store, particularly a chain grocery store, available in the country, small town. Sometimes you got to hunt. You got to cook your own food. You got to grow your own food. But again, you have all these individuals, particularly these young individuals, who really believe in socialism and communism. They don't believe capitalism works. It's because you don't know how to compete. You don't know how economy works. I know right now it looks like we have a K-shaped economy where you have a flat line at the bottom, and then you have the people, and it just depends on where you are. In my humble opinion, it's geographical. Because I can tell you right now, here in the state of Indiana, Facebook and Meta, right up in Lebanon, back right across from on State Route 32, going west, past Arby's, past all the hotels on 32. Meta is getting ready to build a data center. Yes, they are. More warehouses are going up. It's a lot of jobs here. People don't want to work. You don't need to go to college. But I see a lot of you all blaming everything on Trump. And the worst thing you all could do is lie and say Trump is trying to starve us. Who's Trump? He's not starving me. In fact, I just ate the food that I bought with no food stamps. And what a number of you Democrats are doing, you're trying to speak for all of us. No. Many of us out here are eating. Hell, Americans could lose some weight. I mean, we have a large obesity rate here. Even the ones on food stamps, they're not really starving or wasting away. They're buying junk with their food stamps. They're not getting any exercise. They're not. They're going out buying all this chemicalized food. And bottom line is, They're spending their money in restaurants as well. Some of these individuals who are on food stamps, they got more than what I got. They can afford iPhones. A number of them are driving nice cars. A number of them have nice TVs. I can't afford a 55-inch TV. I have to pay rent every month and utilities. Any of them, we're giving them a helping hand. Bottom line is this. I don't feel stuck. I feel sorry for the individuals who are on food stamps who need it, but the able bodied, no. And for the government workers not getting paid, many people keep forgetting that you have your air traffic controllers that didn't get paid, and you have your military. And the funny thing about the military, guess what? They didn't get paid, but they still have to go out there and fight. Nobody thought about that. Everybody's crying about the government employees, but not the military. And also, you have these two National Guard members who tried to pull a fast one in Chicago. They said, well, they disagree with it was a captain and a staff sergeant. They're in the Army National Guard. And they want to disobey the orders when it comes to them being on duty in Chicago. They believe in the migrants, but I found out it's a captain. If you don't know what a captain is in the Army, the Air Force, and the Marines, it's like a lieutenant in the Navy and in the Coast Guard. Captain has 2 silver bars. Then you have the staff sergeant. The staff sergeant is an E6 in the Army, which you have 3 chevrons and 1 rocker. That's a staff sergeant. Now, you had a female staff sergeant and a male captain. Found out, yeah, they're in the National Guard, but they're trying to run for Congress. They're Democrats. And they're going against what's been told to them about the immigrants. They're against the immigrants. Are they traitors? Because if you are a traitor in this wartime, you might end up with a bullet in the back of your head. It's what generally happens. That's why a number of them, when they went AWOL, they escaped to Canada. The bottom line is, I don't want that to be passed down to the rest of the soldiers and the airmen in the National Guard or the sailors and the Marines, because those are the only branches that still have structure. All the other branches, all the other forces of life, rather, it's no structure. But if you listen to these Democrats out here, they're always talking about equality. Well, let me tell you something. We don't live in an egalitarian society. And again, I'm just going to say this. If you don't like what's going on in this country, be my guest. Move out of this country. I'll pack your bags with you and move out. Bottom line is, you have too many individuals who complain. The problem with Americans is they've always been spoiled and don't realize what they have until it's gone. And James Madison said, we want to preserve this republic if we can. And James Madison actually saw through a crystal ball what would happen if you have government takeovers. You see, we're supposed to have limited government. Government is supposed to protect our rights. Government is not supposed to dictate the economy. But see, you have a lot of these Democrats, really what they want basically, they want everybody to get rid of their privatized health care and be on government health care. Bad business. You're not going to get good service when the government is running healthcare. In fact, you're going to really discourage individuals from going to med school. Bottom line is, if you want to bring healthcare costs down, if you work for a company, you might put in, because you're talking about all these billionaires, it's these corporations. A lot of them provide the health insurance. Yes, the employee has to pay some, but for the most part, the company is paying most of the health care. It's what happens when you get a job. But you got people who believe that somebody else, and these are grown ass adults, they believe that somebody else should be doing something for them. That's not how it works. And blaming Trump, a lot of you have Trump derangement syndrome. You just don't like Donald Trump. The people you need to talk to are your Congress people. How many of you even know who your Congress people are? How many of you know who your governors are? In fact, you get these individuals out, these Democrats, they're actually thinking that there was a blue wave in states and cities that are blue countries. That's like me saying I dunked a basketball at 6'7" over a 5'5" guy. Well, you know, the 5'5" guy had no chance. The Republicans had no chance. He had Sleever. These are the guardian angels. He's run many times. What's going to win? Yeah, this, I can't remember his name, Cecchinelli, wasn't going to win either. And then Winston Sears. It's kind of funny how Obama was with a black woman until there was a black woman running as a Republican. Now, I will say this, better be a warning to Republicans. And what happened was the Democrats got out and voted. The Republicans didn't vote. In my mind, they already knew that they weren't going to win. And even with Gavin Newsom, he can't redistrict California, and it's already redistricted. See, the Democrats started a lot of this. See, going back to black people, because it was that Brown Board of Education when Barry Goldwater and Lyndon B. Johnson, they were running for president in 1964, and Lyndon B. Johnson said, I have every end Negro voting Democrat for the next 200 years. And because Goldwater said, well, the Feds shouldn't get in state businesses, and I believe that's that Brown Board versus Board of Education, because Lyndon B. Johnson was also a congressperson in the Dwight D. Eisenhower administration. He didn't, and this was in 57, he did not want the Civil Rights Act to pass. It's been your Democrats. Your Democrats are your racist people. Your Democrats were your slave owners. This is why I can't blame every white out there, because every white person wasn't a slave owner. There were blacks who were slave owners as well. See, when it comes to history, many of us, because even Martin Luther King, up there with his, with his fist in the Black Panthers, communists. So here's some of Martin Luther King's speeches, communists. But see, we were all told that he was a good man. But Martin Luther King was going to start the Poor People's Campaign, in which Black Lives Matter took some of the rhetoric. And you see, if you look at the Democrats, what do you have in the Democratic Party? A lot of soft men and loudmouth women, undesirable women for the most part. Then you have, again, you're talking about individuals making money. Look at the people on The View. They make a lot of money. See, I don't hear the Democrats talking about socialism and billionaires when it comes to the people who vote for them. Look at George Soros. He's put lots of money into some of these races. Well, George Soros isn't from America. In fact, he's from overseas. But George Soros, during the first Trump term, we heard Russia, Russia, Russia. But look at George Soros. He's putting foreign money in Democratic candidates here. And a lot of these politicians, they've been bought. This is why we need term limits. I mean, you have everybody blaming it on Trump when the Democrats, because they couldn't get their way. And let me tell you something about the government being shut down. The government was shut down for 40 days, and it's going to be open for another 2.5 months. And guess what? And this is what you're not being told. They're going to run through the same issue in January. After January 30th, there may be another government shutdown. And see, the Democrats have to be careful because while we are a year off, we'll be just 10 months off of midterms. And somebody's going to get primary. And I believe Chuck Schumer cowered out because he's afraid to get primaried by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So when it comes to the Democrats, that party has always been racist. And a lot of whites on their side. Now, I can't stand white liberals. I mean, they, in my humble opinion, they still act as if they're superior to everybody else. They want to try to help everybody else based on the guilt that they have, based on what their Democratic cohorts did to black people during the Jim Crow years. It wasn't the Republicans, because most black people were Republicans. In fact, the Democrats wanted to destroy black people. And you know, it wasn't just black people that were hanged, it was white people that were also hanged for being Republicans. That's what the Ku Klux Klan stood for. They were Democrats, Democrats in the South. And they wanted to uphold the South. But you're not going to be told that by the liberal media, because liberal media is just putting out lies and propaganda, because you have a number of individuals who don't do any type of research. They lie, they listen to the lies, they're very gullible, they got lead in their ass. And if you don't know what lead is, I'm going to tell you what lead is. Lead stands for lies, emotion, assumption, deceit, deception, delusion, and disease. That's what it stands for. And there are a lot of Americans who have that. And social media is the worst thing you could do for some of these Americans. They get up there on TikTok. This is where I see a number of dumb women on TikTok thinking that they have a voice. Well, many of them don't even know what they're talking about. All they're doing is regurgitating statistics that they make up, feelings or emotions. They don't like Trump. They don't understand tariffs. Certainly, in every civilization, you're going to have your haves and have-nots. You look at India. India has a caste system. A number of places have caste systems. But for the Americans who are against these illegals being deported, let's go with them. Go with them and live in their country. See if you can carry that American flag in their country. See how far you get. Well, see, the problem in America, we've been too loose. Lips sink ships. We've been letting people come in. And this happened during the Reagan administration. But it's kind of funny when we talk about the deportation, the hypocrisy, the Democrats, because it was Obama who was the chief deporter in charge. He's the one who had the kids in cages. They blame that on Trump. He had the kids in cages because he believed in deportation. I remember a speech he gave when he was running against Hillary Clinton. He talked about illegal immigration during the Bush administration, and Bush was a lousy president. He was. I'm talking about the second Bush. That's why you don't hear him. But it just gives me this idea that Americans still believe in this bullshit about health care when it's the insurance providers. They're the ones overcharging everybody. They're the ones with the high deductibles. Bottom line is this: they have a lot of suits. So if you are an illegal immigrant here in this country right now, you can walk in and get yourself fixed up free with a clinic. If you have a business, okay, get under a chamber of commerce, have an umbrella for small businesses or under the SBA where they can purchase health insurance, a group health insurance plan, cheaper. Insurance across state lines. Certainly, it's going to be hard to do because of an act back in 1948 when it came to insurance, but you can try it. Also, you can have health savings accounts, but you have to take care of yourself a little better. If you have a health savings account, you can save up and actually look at your own individual health plans yourself without the Affordable Care Act. And then the biggest thing is tort reform. There's a lot of suits that go on when it comes to health insurance, a lot of suits. And we have to pay for it. And the bottom line, too many of you listen to these politicians out here. Politicians are looking out for themselves. The politicians are being funded by George Soros and other lobbyist groups. But a lot of the American people, they don't know it. They're complaining, they're blaming Trump. Not Trump's fault. Every president makes mistakes. It's really funny that I didn't hear any of this crap during the Bush administration. Well, I heard a little bit during the Bush administration, but during the Obama administration or during the Biden administration. And a lot of you individuals who want socialism, will tell you this: socialism doesn't work. They make promises that they know they're not going to keep. Because do you think that the people in your party who are billionaires, millionaires, you talk about the top 1%, what is your definition of the 1%? I keep hearing Bernie Sanders talks about billionaires. Well, bottom line, it's some of these billionaires who have companies. The people who have the money, who take the risk to employ people. Certainly, the bottom line, when you start a business, even a small business, you should find out who your competition is, especially if you start a restaurant. I guarantee many of you who start small businesses, you're not even doing a SWOT analysis. Do you even know what a SWOT analysis is? Do you even know the tax codes? I mean, many of the businesses that are started are basically one person, people who are self-employed. They're not using LLC, they're using their social security number, which that's also dangerous as well. Why? Because you can be sued as an individual person. And these individuals don't even know how to market. But I've always heard in the black community, the black women were the most educated. No, you're not. You're the most enrolled, but not educated. You got most of the government jobs because you fulfill two quotas. You're black and you're a woman. But now you see that the chickens have come home to roost. And this is not beating down on black women. This is actually what's happening. Many of you went to school. You were given a lot of things. In fact, there was an experiment with some black women in Georgia, about 600 of them, 800 of them. Well, they were going to be given UBI, universal basic income. You see, when you hear me say universal basic income, socialized medicine, it's all government. And see, when we talk about the food stamps, there were other government workers who didn't get paid, who were essential. And with all these programs, see, when you cut some of these programs, guess what you're going to also cut? Nobody's saying this. You're going to cut government workers because you don't need a lot of government workers. You don't need them. Government is too intrusive right now. But you have the Democrats. And they thought they could get by. Now, I'm not saying the Republicans are the smartest, because I still think a lot of the Republicans are cowards. The only reason why the Republicans make an attempt to put their foot down is because of Trump. That's why. The Republicans, for the most part, are cowards. They're too honest. The Democrats, they're going to do whatever they can do to win. And see, I'm hoping the next time around, now when we do the filibuster, you want the filibuster to be on small things, not big things. Because it's something big, and you have the Democrats in power, and they want socialized medicine, I guarantee you, a continuing resolution, the Democrats would have put that through if they were in power. They would have found a way to put it through. In fact, the same continuing resolution that the Democrats didn't put through this time, or the Republicans didn't want the Democrats to put through, it's the same one during the Biden era. The bottom line is, we're just trying to alleviate illegals from living off of Americans. Now, here's what I would do. If you're going to give something to somebody, give it to American people, like tariffs. If there's a lot of tariff money out there and they ever get into this situation again, give it to the American people. And something else I keep seeing up there, the White House. Alterations to the White House. Well, let me tell you something. I hear a lot of Democrats, well, the public doesn't want Trump to do anything to the White House. Well, first of all, so you'll know, the White House, there are a number of presidents that did their remodeling to the White House. Heck, Hillary Clinton took stuff out of the White House. But Trump throwing his ballroom Those are all private donors. Has nothing to do with taxpayers. Just so you'll know, private donors, which got a number of individuals who are in their little fee-fees up there saying that, oh, Trump is using taxpayer money. I heard some of that. That's what, it's funny with TikTok. You notice with TikTok and Instagram, it's where your dumbest people go. It's a lot of you females on TikTok and Instagram. Now you have a lot of nuts on YouTube, but not like TikTok and Instagram, especially when it comes to politics. And I'm just going to tell you this. If you're going to get into politics, you need to understand how politics works. You need to have an issue. It needs to be well organized and well funded. And something else to tell you. At UC Berkeley, there was a protest out there against some conservatives coming on to give their point of view at UC Berkeley. UC Berkeley is heavily liberal. Well, most college students didn't want conservatives to come on their campus. It's like the old Charlie Kirk thing. Well, colleges, they let Charlie Kirk. Because really all he wanted to do was listen to the other side. But see, the other side doesn't want to listen to anybody. The other side believes that they're right and everybody should listen to what they have to say. Because the other side, the left always believes that they know better. But if they knew better, their policies would work. One thing that the left doesn't understand, America, regardless of all the crazy rhetoric that's out there, even some of the Democrats out there, it's somewhat traditional here. But if I look at who voted for Mamdani was an anti-Semitic. But I believe 39% of the Jews, the Jewish people, voted for Mamdani. That's a lot. I believe 27% of the blacks voted for Mamdani. But see, it's a lot of foreigners who voted for Mamdani. Wasn't a lot of New Yorkers. Now he may promise free bus rides. He thinks he's going to take on all the real estate moguls. He ain't got enough power to do that. He got enough power. He thinks he's going to take on Trump. Remember, he's just the mayor of a city. Trump runs the country. And then you got to look at the governor's race. Stefanik, I believe that's her name. She's running for governor. They're on the Republican side against this Kathy Hochul. See, the problem with the blue states, yeah, they have all the money. They have all the population. But they're never run right. You look at Chicago. But it's funny with all these protests, it's a lot of the white people, white liberals at these protests. And they're talking about no kings. Well, first of all, if you had a king, it'd be different. Then a monarch controls everything. A king is just like a common. Look at Putin over there. Look at Putin. People like Fidel Castro, Pol Pot, Mao Zedong, Stalin, Lenin, Mussolini. Look at Marx. Marx wanted the workers to run everything. People like Mamdani want to alleviate production. Well, without production, you're not going to have an economy because it takes production, it takes understanding what's going on. But you have many people, again, in this country, they're on TikTok, they're on Instagram, they're watching too much television. They're not really getting out there to research. Now, I'm not telling everybody to believe what I say, but I do research and I'm out here in the real world. I see what's going on. I see the gas prices. I see who's at the grocery store. I'm just going to tell you. When I hear people who are on food stamps who have put nothing into the system complain that they have to spend cash for their food, well, what do you think it's for? I spend cash on a debit card on food. You got to eat. But they act like the taxpayers should be taking care of them. See, the problem with people who are getting all these government benefits and able-bodied, the welfare state really alleviated families. We talk about feminism. Feminism, yeah, it's got its Marxism with it, but the welfare state. Welfare state incentivizes individuals to have kids out of wedlock because they'll be rewarded for being irresponsible. You look at why we are in a pickle now with the economy, goes back to the North, goes back to NAFTA. Because we had industrialization in the 80s and early 90s, and then when Clinton came in, this is why you have the workplace the way it is now. What happened was all the jobs, the manufacturing jobs, they were shipped to China. All the steel. I mean, steel was made in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Sparrows Point. I know my dad. He worked at Sparrows Point, Bethlehem Steel, U.S. Steel in Gary, Indiana. They also had Youngstown, Ohio, right along the Monongahela River or the Ohio River. U.S. Steel in West Virginia. All here on the Rust Belt. They made everything here in the Midwest. In Kokomo, they used to make transmissions. I believe they had a plant here in Indianapolis. The Wonder Bread plant was here in Indianapolis. It's where it got started. But when all the jobs were being shipped overseas because they can do it cheaper, that was a problem. And you know those other countries? They were charging Americans tariffs. That's why the Supreme Court, they need to put a kibosh on deleting the tariffs. Bottom line is, you don't have to like Trump, but he's doing everything he says he's going to do, even if you don't agree with it. I would rather have that than these politicians with a forked tongue telling me what they're going to do and they never do it. But they want your vote every 4 years. What you all need to understand is Trump is not a politician. He's a businessman. You don't have to agree with him. But the shutdown wasn't his fault. And he's not trying to be a king. It's kind of funny. You all having a no kings protest when there's no king. And then when you're asked, what are you protesting for? Well, he's a fascist. Then you ask another follow-up question. How is he a fascist? Do you know what fascism is? See, a lot of you regurgitate what you hear on television, and you don't even know the context of what a fascist is, or socialism. I've broken it down for you in a couple of videos. What fascism is, what socialism is. what communism is, what capitalism is. But when I still go out, you still got dummies out there who don't know how economies work. And that's the problem with a number of individuals. Many of Americans are consumers. They don't understand anything about investing. Yeah, the stock market, if you invest in it, you put your money in it, you're going to get some dividends out of it. Now you're going to be double taxed because you're taxed by the corporation and your dividends. And it's also common stock that's really, because you have two types of stock, preferred stock and common stock. The bottom line, the people who invest make the money. But I don't hear Bernie Sanders and AOC talking about the billionaires on their side. And they have a lot of billionaires. A lot of them from Hollywood are millionaires and billionaires. But they don't want to talk about it. Why do they not want to talk about it? Because they're hypocrites. Democrats, when they don't get their way, they go to the appellate court, the low court, and then they get some loony judge trying to block everything Trump's doing. And what Trump is doing, he's going to the Supreme Court and getting it overturned. A lot of you folks don't even know how government works. And there are a number of you who don't even understand the three branches of government. A number of you don't understand the reason why the government wasn't open, because you needed 60 votes. The Republicans have 53 senators, and this is by the Senate. The Republicans have 53 senators, and they needed 7 Democrats. And most of the Democrats, they didn't want to vote for it. Then, out of the blue, it's kind of funny, out of the blue, 8 Democrats came out. And my opinion is, I'm not saying they didn't want to see the government open, but they know they're going to get elected again. And they know that they must be primary. And I'm going to say this too. If there's a government shutdown, then why should Congress get paid? Why should the Supreme Court get paid? Why should all the judges get paid? That's what I would do. Okay, you want to shut it down? Then nobody gets paid. Talking about everybody in the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. That's what it is. And I guarantee, if you don't pay those individuals, guess what? They're going to open the government up, because they're not going to have a paycheck. A lot of these donors donate to all these politicians. But still, a lot of dumb Americans out here don't know what's going on with their country. Many of these individuals, particularly these foreigners, you're letting them be part of your government, and they don't care about this country. Well, many Americans aren't going to be able to go to those countries and be part of their government. In America, we have a lot of backwards thinking, a lot of ignorance. And what I'm here to do is just provide you with some insight. Too many Americans want socialism, communism, and they're gravitating more and more to it. This is why Republicans, you get out there and grab some of these young folk, start talking to them. Because what's going to happen is they're going to be swept up by the Democrats. And when a number of the Gen Xers and baby boomers die off, some of the millennials, this country is going to be a socialist country. These individuals don't know anything about how to run anything. It's because we didn't pass them the torch. You got big mouths like AOC, who says she had a degree in economics. She knows nothing about economics. Politicians know nothing about economics. They're lawyers. That's why they're in their legislative branch. They don't make business decisions unless they had a business. And a number of them haven't had a business. And we need term limits. We have too many career politicians. Thank goodness Nancy Pelosi is on her way out the door. She's been in too long. But we have a number of other ones who have been in politics too long. What we don't have are sensible ideas. I didn't say new ideas, sensible ideas. Everybody is projecting, gaslighting out here on what's going on. And in the end, they don't know what's going on. They're just talking. Yeah, Mom Donnie, you're going to see what he's going to do to New York. He was a smooth talker, smooth operator. But in the end, everything's going to have to go with city council. Remember, we have a parliamentary style government, so we don't have a king. So just because you are a mayor, a president, or governor, you still have to go through your city council, your state house, and Congress. Because we have three branches of government: state, local, and in the federal government. And again, for all you individuals who are saying Trump is not feeding us, first of all, if you really want to get fed, have churches. You also have donors, food banks. Going in there because you're not getting food stamps, that's not the way to do it. Food stamps shouldn't be for able-bodied people. It should be for people who really need them. Bottom line, I'm just going to say this. Too many Americans are depending on government for everything. They're listening to all the rhetoric, especially when they go to college. College is no longer a learning institution. It's an institution or an indoctrination camp in some majors. And in the end, you have a number of individuals who aren't critical thinkers. And because they're not critical thinkers, they believe the lies, they're emotional. There's a lot of assumptions and gaslighting going on. Of course, we have a lot of deceit, delusion, deception, and disease. And in the end, when you're gullible and you listen to the rhetoric about what these lefties are promising you, when it comes to the thick of everything, you're going to be disappointed. Why? Because individuals talk a good game, but they never follow up with action. And all they want to do is keep their power. And what the government wants to do, particularly these left-wing politicians, they want to talk about the right when they're actually the ones who are causing all the authoritarianism. They really want to keep you enslaved. You got some of these Gen Xers, some of these baby boomers out here, particularly the black ones, and some of the white liberals out here too. We're still on that Democratic plantation. Yes, you have some bad Republicans out here. Yes, a lot of people have Trump derangement syndrome. But in the end, many of us are not starving. Once we're on food stamps, you can blame Trump for everything. You got to blame yourself. Because in the end, you made the poor decision. And some of the decisions were replicated by what you saw your mamas do, your daddies do. But when it comes to government, government is not there to provide us with a lifestyle. It's there to protect our rights. You believe the government is going to take care of you, cradle to grave, you're going to be sadly disappointed. Because in the end, do you want to stay on a government plantation or do you want to be free? The choice is yours. And that's my commentary for this edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. If you like what I just presented, please comment, share, and subscribe. And if you're looking for some STEM content, check out QCIS channel. We're on that channel. You get a daily dose of science, technology, engineering, and math. Now, here's where you can find me. 411 Talk Zone radio show. You can find me right here on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, True Social, and Rumble. And for the QCIS channel, you can find me right here on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, and LinkedIn. And again, with this video, not offending anybody, but if you are offended, change the way your life is operating. And also, don't be jealous of what somebody else has. You are your own person. Be an individual. Don't allow yourself to be influenced by individuals who are ignorant. Talking about like The View and liberal media and all these individuals trying to be social justice warriors, thinking that they can save the world, because they can't save the world. And when it comes to these food stamps, I mean, none of these Democrats saying that Trump won't feed everybody. He wouldn't release the funds from the United States Department of Agriculture. There's got to be a law to do that. And these Democrats want to continue to break the law. That's why I still believe Trump should utilize the filibuster. Because I guarantee the Democrats, they want to make Puerto Rico and Washington a state. They want to stack the court with 13 judges. That means that you make Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. states, 4 more senators they get. That's what the Democrats want to do. But in the end, I'm just telling you to do this. Do some research. Understand what's going on. Because if you don't, you're always going to be a victim. And you're always going to believe that you're oppressed. And you'll never win. This is why we say, get the lead out of your ass, the lies, the emotion, the assumption, the delusion, deception, disease, and deceit. Don't worry about what somebody else has. And if you're having issues, change your life. Because in the end, always be blessed for what you have. Don't worry about what you don't have. Know that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. And if it doesn't apply, let it fly. But if the shoe fits, wear it. If you don't like the shoe, then change it. And once again, thank you for listening to this edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. Till next time, my name is Leon Jones. I want you all to have a wonderful and gracious evening. God bless you I'm out.